Look closely at your family's oldest photographs, forgotten surnames, treasured heirlooms, and quiet traditions that nobody fully remembers anymore today. Perhaps your grandparents repeated unusual blessings, avoided certain foods, or preserved customs they never completely explained to younger generations. Most families assume these habits simply survived through culture, coincidence, or personal preference, eventually losing their original meaning across countless generations. Yet historians, archaeologists, and genetic researchers have discovered that ordinary family traditions sometimes preserve remarkable clues, reaching surprisingly deep into history. Across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, countless families experienced migration, exile, conversion, persecution, and dramatic cultural change over centuries. Many ancestors changed languages, adopted different religions, or accepted entirely new identities simply because survival demanded difficult choices during uncertain historical periods. Those decisions protected families, yet they also buried memories beneath generations of silence, making true ancestral origins increasingly difficult to recognize today. Modern DNA studies, historical records, and archaeological discoveries are gradually uncovering forgotten connections that written family histories never preserved or accurately recorded. Researchers stress that no single custom, surname, or physical feature can confirm ancient Jewish ancestry without supporting historical and genetic evidence together. Still, certain recurring patterns have attracted scientific attention because they appear repeatedly among communities sharing surprisingly similar ancestral journeys across continents. Imagine discovering that an everyday family tradition, once dismissed as meaningless, actually reflects choices made by distant relatives thousands of years before. That possibility has inspired researchers to compare ancient burial sites, migration routes, preserved manuscripts, and modern genetic evidence with extraordinary care recently. The results reveal a human story shaped less by mystery than resilience, adaptation, survival, and generations determined to protect their families against overwhelming challenges. Some discoveries strengthen long-accepted historical understanding, while others raise thoughtful questions. Scientists continue investigating through expanding archaeological and genetic research worldwide today. The goal is not proving identity through myths, but understanding how history leaves subtle fingerprints within families across remarkably long stretches of time. As every new discovery appears, another forgotten chapter emerges, connecting ordinary households with civilizations that once transformed the ancient world through enduring cultural traditions. Before examining the 7 surprising signs, we must first travel back where those remarkable journeys began, long before modern borders even existed. Because the greatest surprise may not be whether ancient Jewish roots survived, but how history quietly carried them directly into the present. More than 3,000 years ago, small farming communities lived among rugged hills stretching across the ancient land historians identify as Canaan. These settlements left behind stone houses, storage jars, burial caves, and simple tools that archaeologists continue carefully uncovering through modern excavations today. Ancient inscriptions gradually appeared, revealing communities sharing related languages, traditions, and beliefs, unlike many neighboring kingdoms surrounding their growing settlements during that era. Over generations, these communities formed kingdoms remembered in biblical writings and partially supported through archaeology, although historians continue debating several important historical details. Trade routes connected Egypt, Mesopotamia, Anatolia, and the Mediterranean, bringing merchants, travelers, soldiers, and ideas through lands occupied by diverse ancient populations every season. Daily life revolved around farming, shepherding, seasonal harvests, family gatherings, religious festivals, and local markets filled with goods arriving from distant civilizations nearby. Powerful empires eventually expanded into the region, transforming peaceful villages into strategic territories, repeatedly caught between competing military campaigns and political ambitions across centuries. The Assyrian Empire conquered northern territories, forcing many communities into exile while others escaped, carrying family traditions beyond their original homeland for safety. Later, Babylonian armies destroyed Jerusalem, including the First Temple, creating another major wave of displacement remembered across generations through written records and cultural memory. Not everyone traveled the same path because some families remained nearby while others settled across Mesopotamia, Egypt, and eventually regions surrounding the Mediterranean Sea. Persian rulers later permitted many exiles to return, yet countless families chose remaining abroad where new homes, businesses, and communities had gradually developed. Centuries later, Greek influence spread throughout the region, introducing different languages while many Jewish communities carefully preserved religious customs despite changing political landscapes. Roman rule brought another dramatic turning point, especially following major revolts during the 1st and 2nd centuries, causing widespread displacement and lasting demographic changes. Some families settled throughout Europe, while others traveled into North Africa, Arabia, and later parts of Asia, adapting to unfamiliar environments with remarkable resilience. As generations passed, many descendants adopted local languages, clothing, occupations, and customs while quietly preserving selected family traditions inside their homes across different societies. Some openly practiced Judaism, while others converted voluntarily or under pressure, especially during periods of persecution, discrimination, or changing political authority throughout medieval history. These complicated journeys created family histories that rarely followed straight lines, making modern ancestry far more complex than simple national borders might suggest today. Archaeologists continue discovering ancient synagogues, inscriptions, coins, and household objects, revealing communities connected across surprisingly vast geographic distances despite repeated historical upheavals. Those discoveries raise an important question because if identities changed repeatedly across centuries, what traces could still remain within modern families without anyone realizing them? Today, researchers study ancient ancestry using several different sources, including DNA analysis, archaeology, historical documents, linguistics, and carefully preserved family records together. Each method contributes valuable information, yet none alone can identify someone's complete ancestral story with absolute certainty or historical precision today. Modern genetic testing compares small variations within human DNA shared among populations, connected through thousands of years of migration and family relationships. Researchers found that many present-day Jewish communities retain genetic links tracing toward ancient populations from the Levant, despite centuries of geographic separation. However, those same genetic markers also appear among neighboring populations, because human history involved continuous movement, marriage, trade, and cultural exchange everywhere. That is why responsible scientists avoid claiming any single DNA marker proves ancient Jewish ancestry without supporting historical and genealogical evidence alongside genetics. Family surnames sometimes attract attention because certain names appear frequently among Jewish communities, although surnames often changed repeatedly throughout recorded history. Governments, immigration officials, religious authorities, and local traditions all influence family names, making surnames useful clues rather than definitive historical proof alone. Researchers also examine inherited customs quietly surviving inside families, including holiday foods, burial traditions, naming patterns, and unique blessings passed between generations. Some traditions survived because families intentionally preserved them, while others remained simply because descendants never questioned familiar household practices learned during childhood. Anthropologists emphasize that cultural traditions often travel farther than written records, especially when communities experienced persecution, migration, or forced religious conversion across centuries. Ancient DNA recovered from archaeological sites has transformed historical research by allowing scientists to compare long-separated populations through advanced laboratory techniques carefully. Evidence suggests certain modern communities share measurable genetic continuity with ancient Levantine populations, although every population also reflects extensive historical mixing afterward. That finding reminds researchers human ancestry resembles overlapping rivers rather than isolated streams, with countless families connected through unexpected historical pathways together. Even physical characteristics sometimes mentioned within family stories cannot reliably identify ancestral origins because similar traits appear across many unrelated populations worldwide. Scientists therefore recommend combining historical records, family documents, oral history, archaeology, and genetic testing instead of depending upon only one possible indicator. The most convincing ancestral discoveries usually emerge when independent evidence begins supporting the same historical journey from several different directions across generations consistently. Perhaps the greatest scientific lesson is not discovering perfect certainty, but understanding how ordinary families preserve extraordinary history without realizing its remarkable significance. That leaves one final question, because if hidden connections truly survived centuries of change, what should those discoveries mean for families living today? If your family shares several discussed signs, curiosity should replace certainty because genuine ancestry deserves careful investigation supported by credible historical evidence. The strongest conclusions emerge when family stories, historical documents, archaeological context, and genetic research begin pointing toward remarkably similar ancestral journeys together. Some viewers may discover meaningful connections, while others may learn their families followed entirely different yet equally fascinating historical paths across centuries. Neither outcome changes personal worth because every family carries remarkable stories shaped by migration, resilience, adaptation, and survival through changing historical circumstances together. History reminds us that borders changed repeatedly, kingdoms disappeared, languages evolved, and communities blended far more often than many people realize today. Human identity has never remained completely fixed because generations continuously married, migrated, traded, and formed relationships across neighboring cultures throughout recorded history. That reality explains why ancestry rarely follows simple categories, despite modern expectations that every family belongs neatly within one historical population forever. Researchers continue discovering forgotten cemeteries, ancient settlements, damaged manuscripts, and preserved artifacts, expanding humanity's understanding with every carefully documented archaeological excavation worldwide. Each discovery adds another small piece without rewriting everything already known, demonstrating how responsible science advances through evidence rather than dramatic assumptions alone. Perhaps the most valuable family heirloom is not an object hidden inside an attic, but an untold story waiting patiently for careful investigation. Old photographs, handwritten letters, immigration records, cemetery inscriptions, and conversations with elderly relatives sometimes reveal details unavailable through genetic testing by itself. Even when records disappear, preserving family memories today may help future generations better understand their own place within humanity's shared historical journey together. The search for ancestry ultimately becomes more than discovering names because it reveals courage, sacrifice, hope, and determination passed quietly across countless generations. Every generation inherited something beyond physical appearance, including traditions, values, memories, and lessons shaped by experiences stretching far beyond living memory today. Whether ancient Jewish roots become part of your family's story or not, history still connects every person through countless shared human experiences worldwide. The evidence encourages thoughtful exploration instead of quick conclusions, because genuine understanding grows patiently through questions, careful research, and respect for historical complexity always. Sometimes the greatest discovery is realizing ordinary families quietly preserve extraordinary pieces of world history without recognizing their remarkable significance for generations afterward. Perhaps your family's hidden story still waits inside forgotten documents, quiet traditions, or conversations that have not yet happened around your own table. If this journey changed how you see your family history, subscribe for more evidence-based documentaries exploring humanity's forgotten past and remarkable ancestral connections.